Hey, you guys, I want to make a video about relationships and when it's time to leave and how much people deserve access to us. Because someone close to me is going through a breakup, a good friend of mine, and so this topic came to my mind again. It is futile to expect that this person will change. It is futile to be in a relationship with someone where I know this relationship is not working the way I need. And if this person would change, then I can be satisfied in this relationship. If this person will change. I'm not talking about he's got to make more money and he's got to take me on trips. I'm talking about this person has to become functional. This person, if they're depressed or anxious or have bipolar or some mental health issue, they're in therapy. If they're emotionally avoidant, they are getting therapy. They're actively involved in counseling. If they are depressed, they're seeing a therapist. They're trying to exercise. They're making a change. That's what I'm talking about. If they are financially irresponsible, they're working on that. If they're an alcoholic, they're going to a 12-step program and they're stopping drinking. I'm talking about being in a relationship with someone who is not fully functional and I'm really unhappy with it and I'm trying to change them. I keep trying to make it work while meanwhile they don't give a shit because everything is right in their world. And we have this dynamic going on where I think all I deserve is someone who is not functional. This is all I deserve. At some level, when I got into this relationship, I thought this is all I deserve. And I no longer feel that way. And therefore, I'm with a person who's looking for a caretaker, a rescuer, an enabler. That's what they're looking for. And unless they're going to therapy, they're going to keep running away and hiding in their dysfunction. You could even be with a narcissist or someone who's abusive. You could be with any of these kind of people. I'm going to call them dysfunctional. They're not functioning. And maybe when you got with them, that was all the intimacy that you could handle. Especially if any of you dating someone in a relationship or having an affair, that's intimacy avoidance. But maybe you've grown and this person doesn't want to go and now you feel responsible. You can't just leave this person when they're depressed or anxious or helpless. How can you leave this person? You feel responsible. And that's where I want to wake people up is that you are not responsible for another adult. Now, it's one thing if this person had some kind of a medical setback or they lost their job. I'm not talking about that. That is when we want to help somebody out. That's what friends are for and relationships are for. I'm talking about someone who is going through life with a dysfunction that they are not addressing. Through whatever issues they have, it's not your responsibility. I believe that we are responsible for our pets and for our minor children. But even minor children, as they get older, they have responsibilities. They have to be accountable. They have to make their bed. They have to, put their dishes away after they eat. They have to do their chores. And the older a child gets, the more freedom a child has, the more accountable and responsible that child has to be. A lot of people weren't raised that way. They were raised to be helpless or to be defiant or to be walled off. And so you have all these people walking around. They look like adults, but they're coming from what Terry Real calls the adaptive child. See, the wounded child is how you were hurt, and the adaptive child is how you adapted. You adapted by lying, by acting helpless, by raging, by checking out, by being avoidant, by lying, by controlling, by manipulating. Those are all adaptive child, and our society really rewards adaptive children. When you see someone very successful in their career, they're likely coming from their adaptive child. They're very successful at work, but in their personal relationships, it's crap. So I want to just wake you up that if you think that you are responsible for another adult's dysfunction, that you can save them, or that you owe them, or that you must help them, I'm just going to wake you up that you have some trauma inside of you, some hooks inside of you of unhealthy relationships that you saw. Healthy adults are addressing their stuff. See, if I'm married to a guy and he gets depressed, I'm not going to leave him because he's depressed. But if he's depressed day in and day out and refusing to go to therapy, now we have a problem, because I'm not going to put up with that, and I don't have to. That's the good news. You don't have to. You don't have to. So here's the concept. Adults are supposed to be independent, and a healthy relationship is two people, two trees, making a forest. Like, a forest is only as beautiful and as strong and as bountiful as each of the trees that make up the forest. So each tree needs sun, it needs water. I don't know what else trees need. But if you have these trees that are buckling, like, let somebody else deal with the guy who wants to be helpless. So I made this little chart, and this came from a book I read from Christine Arylo, a self-help, self-love book. And it kind of goes to the concept of people being, you can put people in circles. Okay, now imagine the center of the circle. You get to be the center of the universe for this exercise. And you're in the center, and now as we go out, there's less intimacy, less vulnerability, less accountability, and less shared values. So when I first meet someone, they're out here. Like, a client is out here, someone you meet on a dating app is out here. Even family members that you don't want to talk to, you can even take them off the board. So you get to decide who is in your personal sphere. And before I go into this more, I want to talk about Maria Montessori talked about the prepared environment for a child. That children thrive in an environment that's safe, respectful, orderly, where they're allowed to have some autonomy, where the materials are age appropriate. The whole concept in the Montessori classroom is to have these certain materials that children learn with their hands, that they like doing things for themselves, that we have order and respect of each other's spaces. And so we can take that into our home life. Like, my home is my prepared environment. My home has to be clean, safe, and peaceful. And anyone who wants to live with me has to be a pleasant addition to me. I don't want to live with people who are depressed, anxious, raging, volatile, irresponsible. I don't want that. And you don't have to either. That's what I'm trying to get to. But a lot of people are living with people or in relationships with people that are bringing them down because they don't know that they have a right to separate, because there's this, if I leave you, I'm hurting you. I have to be with you so I don't hurt you. And that's like some very messed up thinking, because they're not trying to help themselves, but yet here I am negating my life and my needs to try to make you feel better, while you don't give a shit how I feel or how you feel. You're fine over there. Okay, then go find someone else who's fine with you the way you are, because I'm not. But this is a very difficult step, especially for women who are in DV situations, and that comes from when they were children. They were constantly punished for protecting themselves or asserting their needs. So that part of their brain that asserts needs or protects themselves is dormant. So when they are violated, they freeze. That's all they know how to do. If you're a person who freezes, you've got to wake up those parts of you that say, no, I'm going to protect myself. You got to wake up those muscles. Just like I've been waking up my lats. They're so asleep. I've had to like really work at waking up my lats. It's the same thing with our brain. Okay, now let's go into this chart. So here's you, or here's me, okay? Now, no one has access to me because I'm only me, but the closest to me is going to be my intimate partner. My intimate partner is going to have the most access to me. They're going to have my body more than anyone else, okay? Then after that come my children. And then my family and friends. Now, those of you who have toxic family, you can just use little pegs. If they're toxic, get them off the board. They should not be on here if they're toxic. But if they're good family, they're out here, because my my most important relationship is with my intimate partner, the father of my children. Then come my children, then come my parents and my siblings. So if my husband says, what he says is going to come first. I'm not going to check in with my mom or my dad when my husband wants something. He has a priority. Okay? Very important. After family and friends, I have colleagues, clients, neighbors. Now my personal trainers are going to go more somewhere in here under family and friends, because I have a close relationship with them. And then strangers are out here. Now the way you move things is the closer somebody the closer somebody gets access to you, we're moving into more authenticity, more vulnerability, more shared values, more accountability, trust, and shared physical space, shared values, and mental and emotional health. See, I don't really care with people I work with what their mental health is. I don't care if they have depression or anxiety or whatever. I don't care if they cheat on their spouses, like my bookkeeping clients. But I sure care if my friends are like that, and I sure care if my intimate partner is like that. Accountability. A lot of people don't like that word. They don't want to be accountable. Hey, I just want to do whatever I want. Okay, then you can be out here, because there's no workability if you don't want to be accountable. To be in my life, you have to be accountable. I only want accountable people in my life. And if that scares you, good. Because I'm going to let you know from the first time we even talk, I expect accountability. And if accountability scares you, good. Hit the door, Jack. Accountability is just an adult thing. It means showing up, doing what you say you're going to do, and being functional. It means that if you come to me and tell me that you don't like something, let's say I'm dating some guy and I get triggered and I just say, well, fuck you, loser. I'm just thinking of that because Crappy Childhood Fairy talked about this on her video. So I'm going to use her example, actually, because it's been a really long time since I went off on a guy. Like 10 years, okay? 10 years. It's been 10 years since I went off on a guy in person. 10 years. And that was my ex-husband. I think it's been even longer than that. It's been like 14 years. But I do get triggered when random guys text me, because it just feels like they're just pushing a boundary. But in real life, I'm not saying I couldn't get triggered if I was in a relationship, but let me use her example. She said that early on, when she was engaged to her now husband, she had one of her childhood PTSD meltdown, dysregulated, triggering events where she kind of like lashed out or whatever she did. And he went up to her and said, this can never happen again. If we're going to be together, this can never happen again. You got to figure this out. And he held her accountable. And that's when she's like, oh my God, I want this relationship. I want this to work. And she started researching about childhood PTSD, and it got her started on her own healing journey, even more than she was already. And she ended up now with what she has, the Crappy Childhood Fairy YouTube channel and her courses. And that's the kind of very excellent behavior on the part of that man. He's like, I'm not putting up with this. You want to be with me? You need to be accountable and you need to have proper behavior. And that's very attractive in a man when he says that. I love when a man gives me a boundary. He was being accountable and holding her accountable. And because she wanted that relationship and she wanted her personal growth, she made a whole bunch of changes in herself, which were not easy, but now her life is better. And that is the level of performance that we all deserve. I am so fucking tired of these helpless, avoidant guys. Some of you are dealing with narcissists or control freaks. I'm so tired of these helpless, avoidant types who are like, don't leave me, but they don't want to do jack shit. And if they don't want to do that kind of stuff, Crappy Childhood Fairy should be a good example, because she actually had a very crappy childhood and she buckled down and did the work. And that's what a lot of people will do. And they will do it when they're threatened with a relationship ending. That's when a lot of people will change. And that's what Terry Real calls it as leverage. That when the spouse goes, you know what, I'm about to leave you, that person, if they don't want you to leave, they will go into therapy. But you have these holdouts that won't even go then. They won't even go then. And they're not necessarily bad people, but they're just people who are just not ready or not interested. I don't want to judge it, in doing that work to step up and be functional and be accountable. And if they don't want to do that, and I do, I don't have to be with them. And I'm going to call it the accountability thermometer. The accountability thermometer. I'm not going to leave you because you gained weight or you lost your job or you're in the hospital or you're sick. But I am going to leave you if you don't want to be accountable, because accountability is a value I hold dearly. I'm going to be accountable. You can trust me. I keep my word. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to do my part and I'm going to show up. And I expect the same of you. And if you don't want that, then it's best for us to part ways. And those are the only people I want in my life. Those are the only people I want in my life. Accountable people. So what's your accountability meter? How much accountability are you comfortable with? Because if people who are not comfortable with accountability are going to attract other people who don't want accountability. So I think to be in a healthy relationship, we have to get comfortable with accountability, and we have to get comfortable with deserving to be treated with respect. There are a lot of people that are walking down in a one down position. That's usually where I was, like a one down position. I got to come up, and people who are grandiose need to come down. But grandiose people are not watching these videos because they're one up. They don't give a shit that you're upset. They don't want to change. They're like, I'm good over here. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Or, I'm good. I'm not going to change. I'm good. Very grandiose and stubborn. Very stubborn. I'm not into that. But it's sometimes hard. I have a close friend who's dealing with that in her relationship, and she feels bad about leaving this guy, but he doesn't want to address any of his mental health issues. He just doesn't want to look at any of it. It's been years and years of this. And they have some children together, but, there's a lot of dysfunction out there. You guys have to be careful in dating. I think a really important thing to look at is when you have a problem with that person, how are they dealing with the problem? What do they do when you have an argument, and are they willing to go to therapy? That's what, a really important thing to look for, because some people don't believe in therapy or self-help. They don't believe in it. And some people never want to change. They don't want to look at themselves. And a healthy relationship is going to require you to look at yourself all the time and change. So some people are like not comfortable with that. It's too scary. And those people will eventually break your heart. Break your heart. And if you have children, break your children's hearts. I feel bad for all these kids from broken families. It's not ideal. A lot of people are picking very wounded people. Don't go so much by how people look. Go by how they treat you. Don't get blinded by some woman who's just beautiful on the outside, but toxic on the inside. Think of Amber Heard. How many men's lives she ruined. Johnny Depp left his wife. Elon Musk split up with his partner while he knew her, and then now they're saying Jason Momoa and his breakup with Lisa Bonet was also caused by Amber Heard. She comes in and she stokes their dicks and makes them hard and charms them with her evil. You know, that's all out there and available to you if you think with your dick. Or women, you're thinking with your pocketbook and your security, or getting smooth talked by some charmer. What is that person really about? What are their values? What do they do when there's an argument? That's what you really got to see. You got to test that person when they're pissed off. Start saying no to something. See how they react. Are they going to pout? Are they going to get all mad at you? You got to test people early on. See how they react to an argument. Or at least, when you have a good argument a couple months in, when you know somebody, see how they respond. That's, do they like to read self-help books? Can they admit when they're wrong? That's a big one. I'm not talking to my brother anymore because he called me a bunch of stuff, and I'm the big sister that always kept the family together, but I'm like, I'm not going to let it slide now. I'm not going to let it slide. He needs to apologize, and he won't. He's never apologized to anyone. I don't want to be friends with him. He's such a great guy. He's got such a good heart. I love my little brother. But I'm not going to be in relationships with people who can't apologize and who think it's okay to go off on me because that's how I feel and I got to say what I feel. It's called being boundaryless. It's called, and he's never been to therapy and he doesn't believe in it. Same with my sister. She's never been to therapy. Well, she's been to therapy a couple times because she was court ordered when they were going through their divorce. But she also is very boundaryless in her speech. I guess that's how we were raised. And I had to work on that because I was married for so long. And since my divorce, I've had to work on that. And I had to take a really big look at that a year ago around, I can't just say whatever I want. I learned that copying my parents, and I was allowed to get away with it. That's not okay. But they haven't had to be held accountable. That's not my problem. I am not going to go out of my way to compensate for your dysfunction. You're an adult. You're not a child anymore. So you better be accountable for your behavior if you want to be in my life. And if you want to be boundaryless and helpless and avoidant, that's okay too. That's okay too. But don't ask me to be part of it. You can be helpless and boundaryless and avoidant. And don't feel sorry for those people because they will find someone. The avoidant person will find someone who loves avoidance. The helpless person is going to find another caretaker. The rager is going to find someone else who's codependent. They're going to find someone else. Let them find somebody else who's still sick because you're getting better.